All right, so we're here on the railroad grade. We are just north of North Lake and north of the former Bishop's residence in Bishop's Sawmill. And so we're going to enter an area here where there is a long embankment. It's also an area that has not seen any bulldoze trail, and so the grade is still in fairly original shape. You can see that with the leaves down, it's very easy to see a lot of the grade just through the trees here. It's very difficult to make out, but there's a structure, and that is the old machine shop for the railway, as this was the terminus. You can see the roof here. Terminus for the railway after trains stopped running to Gunfoot Lake, and this remained the terminus of the railway up until 1923. So you can see we're a little ways above the grade, probably 3-4 feet above the grade, and here we actually have a small creek that passed through the grade, and there would have been a wooden culvert here. The culvert has since disappeared after all those years. Difficult to see, but under my feet I can actually feel the indentations for the ties. You can see here that you can actually see a long ways underneath the tree growth. You can actually see some of the ditching work alongside the grade. And then the railway continues in this westerly direction here for several more miles on its way to Trestle Bay. All right, so we're here on the railway. It is nice, crisp fall morning. We are just west of North Lake Station, and right here we're going to be entering a very long rock cut. It's actually a very pretty rock cut. This was actually the first rock cut I ever encountered on my first visit to the railway back in 1990. You can see the height of the cut itself. On the north side, it's probably about 15 feet or so high. Just turning back here, looking to the east. It's been a pretty dry fall, so you can see that the cut itself is free of water, which is fairly unusual. You can see that it goes on for several hundred meters. Here it gets much higher, probably in the neighborhood of 20 feet or so. And then immediately following this cut, just to the west of it, we actually enter a very long embankment where the railway crosses a small creek. And what they've done is they've probably taken all the rock that they've blasted out of this cut and put it into the embankment. So we're still here on the railway on North Lake. We have just left the large rock cut located just to the east of us over here. And what we're entering here is a fairly long, fairly high embankment. Most likely this embankment was constructed with a lot of the rock that was taken from that rock cut. You can see how high up we are. We're probably a good 20 feet or so above the valley below us. There is a bit of a noticeable sag here in the grade, so obviously it's settled over time. You can see once again how high up we are. We'll take a look over here on the south side of the grade as well. You can see North Lake just to the south of us through the trees. You can see there is a piece of a sign down here indicating that we are in Le Vérandre Provincial Park, which is a non-operating water park. It encompasses the waterways and the shorelines. Here there's another pronounced sag again. Most likely what was happening here is there is a creek that does pass under the grade. And what has happened is probably the woodwork of the culvert has collapsed over the last 100 or so years and caused the grade itself to dip further into the surrounding ground. It is quite wet and swampy below us, which will account for the sag in the grade. You can see here that the embankment is coming to an end, and then the grade actually climbs back up to resume its normal elevation just right over there. All right, so we're still here on the railway grade. We are west of North Lake Station again, and on North Lake, which is just a little ways through the trees there. And what we're coming upon here is a nice little cutting right before we enter a swampy area. And so you can see here on the north side of the grade how they've cut into this hillside here. It doesn't appear to be any rock work. Just a nice gentle slope. You can see it extends a little bit on the south side of the grade here. And then the railway continues westward here on its way to Trestle Bay. All right, so we're on the railway grade here on North Lake, which is just over through the trees over that direction to the south. And we're entering another rock cut here. Once again, not particularly high, but a little bit longer than some of the other ones. You can see rock work on both the north and south sides of the grade. And then it continues this way here to the west for a few more meters. So you can see there's a little more of a continuation right over here. Once again, not particularly high, probably about 3 feet or so. And then the grade continues this way to the west. So we're still here on the railway on North Lake. We have just passed a very long embankment, which you can see down here. And we're about to enter yet another rock cut. This one here is probably one of the taller ones in this area. You can see that there is a little bit of rock work here on the south side of the grade as well. And so this one here is probably at least 15 feet high, maybe a little bit more. It's very short though. Just the one little outcropping of rock here. And so then the grade continues this way to the west. So we're here on North Lake and we're standing on the railway grade looking to the east, and we're about to walk through a small, tiny little rock cut here. Not particularly high, but once again, just an example of all the rock work that's been done along this section of the railway. So you can see most of it here along the north side of the grade, but there is a little bit here to the south as well. And then the railway continues westward this way towards Trestle Bay. All right, so we're here on North Lake and we're about to enter yet another small little rock cut. You can see it's not particularly high, maybe about 4 feet or so, just centralized on the north side of the grade here. You can see North Lake just over here behind the trees. And so it's just a small little piece of rock work here as we turn the corner of this point here. And then the grade continues this way on to the west. So we're here on the railway grade. We are on North Lake, west of North Lake Station. And what's going to happen here is we're going to enter yet another rock cut that eventually turns into a cutting. So you can see some rock work here along the south side, as well as the north side. It's a fairly long stretch here. You can see how the rock work and cutting diminishes on the south side of the grade. Continues on the north, probably say northeast side of the grade. And then it starts to pick up again on the south side. You can see that the cutting work is actually fairly high. At least about 15 feet, maybe more. As you can see, it's several hundred meters long here. As we still have not reached the end. And then the cutting comes to an end just over here, and the railway continues westward towards Trestle Bay, very shortly passing Greer's logging camp.